Coming up on Not the End, NDE.
And so I was shown a number of situations, and these were all situations that I had been in after my previous lives. I relived some of the scenarios I had been in, some of the realms I had gone to after I had previously died during these previous lives. But I would think about it every day for months and months. And after maybe 6 months, I got contacted, mind-to-mind communication by one of my guides. I knew exactly who it was. And they essentially told me that they needed to hide this experience from me, that it was interfering with my life, and I needed to agree with that. And I agreed, and they hid this experience from me, but told me I would get it back when I was older.
Many have died and returned to tell of their near-death experiences. Their incredible stories reveal to the living that this is not the end.
Hi, my name's Aaron Green. When I was a kid, I had a near-death experience that I'm going to talk about a little bit. So I was born in North Carolina in 1975, and when I was 2, my parents moved to Chesapeake, Virginia, and I used to play in the neighborhood with a lot of friends. We would roam around, go to different houses, just do normal kid activities before the internet and cell phones and computer games. But one day we were just playing in a friend's backyard, and I'm not sure what happened, but I had a lot of trouble breathing. No matter what I did, I couldn't get a breath in. I couldn't breathe no matter what I did. So I got very upset and frustrated, and I started trying to walk home. And I got about maybe 20 feet away from my friends. And I'm not exactly sure what happened, but somehow this breathing problem triggered something for me. And my consciousness, my soul, who I really am, left my body. And I watched as my body fell to the ground, and I just kind of floated there over my body. And a couple things were immediately obvious. It was obvious that I was more than just this physical body, that I was something different entirely. And it was kind of like waking up from a dream, only this life being a person was the dream, and I was waking up to a higher reality. I was more alert, more intelligent. It was just a more real existence than what we're currently living right now. But as I just kind of floated there, a couple things happened very quickly. One was my entire life up to that point replayed like in its entirety. Every moment from birth up until what had just happened replayed. Only in this situation, not only did I re-experience what I had been through, but I could also feel what my parents had been through. I could literally feel how I had impacted them, how the things I had done had affected them. And a couple things really stood out. One was my mother's love for me. It was obvious that was very important. It had like a significance to it that is kind of hard to describe. And then also my father, he was a good father, but what really stood out was some of his frustrations at raising a baby, the crying, the changing the diapers, that kind of thing. I could feel his frustration at having to raise a baby and deal with that. Anyway, it felt like my life review, like those 6 years was very brief. Like it was almost as if I had not accomplished anything in life. I hadn't done anything. It was too short. And the decisions that I made up to that point were, they felt insignificant in that setting. Anyway, I then looked in the distance, and I could see this light that looked kind of like a star, but I knew it wasn't a star. It was just a pinpoint of light in the distance. And I knew that it was very important, but I didn't understand why. There was something like intuitively or instinctual about it that I just knew that it was very important, but I didn't know why, and I didn't continue to focus on it. And I was kind of like back to floating there, and I started to have questions. And as I would have questions, it was like the answers would come to me in extreme detail. It was kind of like I was connected to some deeper intelligence that I could tap into. Anyway, I had the question, what am I? And I could kind of like see myself, see what I looked like. And I was just a round orb of faint light. As a kid, I thought of it was kind of like an egg, just circular with a faint light coming from within. And that's just kind of what I was. And it was very comfortable. It was much better than being in this body. And I was content like that. There wasn't any concern or, it wasn't difficult or anything. Then I would have more questions. And again, as I had questions, these answers would come to me. And in some situations, it was like the answer to my question was to show me something that I had previously been through, but I had forgotten as I lived this life. And so I had the question, where did I come from? Where did I start out? And so something that I had previously been through, like replayed, and I re-experienced what I had been through. I had been a round orb of light with hundreds or thousands of other orbs of light, and we had all existed in what I would call like a sea of light. We were all together, and we were all very happy, content. We were bathed in light all the time, and we didn't have any problems, and there were never going to be any problems. We were just kind of content to exist like that and intermingle with each other, and it was a nice existence. There was like a treat that would come down, and everybody would get one treat periodically. Well, one time these treats were coming down, and there was one fewer treat than there were souls that were in this group. And I made the conscious decision that I was going to give up the treat and let all those around me have their treat, because I knew that they wanted it just as much as I did. And when the last treat came down to the last soul, I was very, very gently lifted up out of that group. And the care with which I was lifted was really noticeable. There was a much higher force that was pulling me out of this group. And I was contacted mentally, like a mind-to-mind kind of communication, telepathic, I guess is what you'd call it. And it was obvious that this was a very, very powerful entity that was contacting me. For simplicity, I'll just say it was God. But this entity, God, explained that he had created me, that I was very much loved, and so were all the other souls, and that by giving up what I wanted for the benefit of those around me, it was very, very important. And it was like I had done something great. And God was very pleased with me that I had done that. And God explained that meant that I was ready to begin something, that it was time for me to start something new. And basically God explained that God is loving, kind, compassionate, honest, caring, empathetic, forgiving, and that in order for me that God had a wonderful existence in store for me, but in order for me to really enjoy and appreciate what God had in store for me and for everybody else, I needed to freely choose those same traits for myself. I needed to become kind, loving, compassionate, just like God is. And God had some kind of way that he had prepared that would allow me to develop along those lines. And God explained that it would be difficult, but it would be completely worth it. That the benefit to me would exceed the frustrations and difficulties that I would have to go through. And I asked God, well, couldn't you just change me and make me the way I need to be to enjoy this kind of existence? And God responded, absolutely. God was fully capable of changing me in whatever way he would want, but we were created with free will, and free will is extremely important. And that if God was to change us like that, or change me like that, it would violate my free will. And that God wasn't going to do that, because one of the core reasons we were created in the first place was to be free and have the ability to make our own decisions. And God was very much a stickler for not tampering with that free will. Anyway, I agreed. I said, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. And God was absolutely sure of this plan that he had. And I say he, but that doesn't really accurately describe God. It's just there's not a better pronoun for God. Anyway, God asked me if I wanted to see his face, and I agreed. And my attention was turned away from all these souls I had been looking at onto this giant sun-like entity with thousands or millions and millions of souls kind of all mingling together. It was a huge sun-like entity, but it was made up of countless individual souls, round orb-like balls of light, kind of like I was. Only these souls were way, way happier than I was. I couldn't even begin to describe how happy they were. They were very much enjoying their existence, and they recognized that I was there, that I was kind of like a new soul. And so a couple of them turned their attention towards me, and they came to the surface, and I could see their face clearly. And so it kind of looked like a sun with faces. Anyway, they knew that I was a new soul, and they assured me that I was going to join them someday, and that when I did, it was going to be fantastic. They were happy that I was going to join them, because every additional soul, it was like they would add something to the collective, and everyone would benefit from me joining them. Anyway, God asked me if I was sure I was ready to go on this training, this adventure, this lesson, whatever it was. And I agreed. And with that, it was like I was shot out very quickly, and I was leaving this place for somewhere new. And God was still contacting me mentally we were still like in communication, and we started looking at thousands and thousands of different planets I could go to. I don't remember any details about what any of them looked like, but there was a lot of them, many thousands, and we could look at them very quickly. And I understood, what kind of beings lived there and what their life was like. And it was clear I could pick any one of these planets that I wanted to, and that's where I would learn my lessons. Well, when we got to Earth, there was something about Earth, and I was absolutely sure that this is where I wanted to be. And so God asked, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, I'm sure. This is where I want to go." And with that, the decision was made, and it was kind of like, that's why I came to Earth. So that answered my initial question about where I'd come from. And so I was back floating in my neighbor's backyard. And I had another question. I wanted to know, well, why Aaron Green? Like, why am I living this life as this person? And so again, the answer was given to me. It was something I had previously been through, but I had forgotten. And this replay started, and I was a soul with some guides. And it was clear that at this point I had become an experienced soul. I had been through a lot between when I was with God and then now shortly before I became Aaron Green. And it was clear I'd been through a lot of stuff, and I was frustrated, and I was a little confused, and I was kind of unhappy with myself and what I had done. It seems like I had made some bad decisions, but my guides were there to help me. They wanted me to come back to Earth, and at first I refused. I said I don't want to come back to Earth, but my guides persisted, and they showed me that I could help some people and that it would be good for me. And so eventually I relented and agreed that, okay, I guess maybe I'm willing to come back to Earth. And they showed me a person I could become, and it was an extremely angry person. And I rejected that and said, no, the life circumstances for that person just aren't right for me. And then we looked at another person I could become, and we started looking through some different options. And we found a set of parents that I liked, and it was obvious that these parents had the genes available to make a redheaded girl. And I really liked that. I really wanted to be a redheaded girl. I liked it that it was kind of an unusual hair color, and I wanted to be a girl because I felt like I'd be less likely to hurt anybody. But there was something, it wasn't quite the right match for me. It just didn't work out. I wouldn't have developed into the kind of person I wanted to. I would have been kind of awkward, and I would have had trouble making friends or getting married. So we started looking at some other options. It became clear that a brown-haired boy, like these parents had tons and tons of genes available for brown-haired boys. And so I could kind of like pick anything I wanted from those options. And so initially I wanted to be like the best looking guy on the planet, very, very good looking. But my guides kind of showed me, hey, look, if you're really, really good looking, you're not going to be able to resist certain temptations. When they're going to treat you a certain way, you're not where you need to be, where you would be able to resist the temptations of those women. And that there's a spiritual downside to that. And so I recognized that, and I agreed. And so we backed the attractiveness down to a more moderate level, hopefully not too bad, but decent. And then it was the same thing with intelligence. I wanted to be like the smartest guy on the planet, very, very intelligent, like, Albert Einstein or smarter than that even. And the parents I was going to have had the genes available for that. But the guides kind of, again, pointed out, hey, there's some downsides to being that intelligent. You're going to be a little bit awkward. You're going to have trouble making friends. You're going to look down on everybody because they're not as smart as you, and you're going to be atheist. And so for those reasons, it was similar, where we backed down the intelligence to something intelligent, but nothing groundbreaking. No Albert Einstein. And then likewise, we looked at all the different physical options available for this person I was going to become. And when we had all the options picked, that was good. And then my guides wanted to show me some stuff that they had planned for my life. And so they reviewed previous lives that I had been through. They showed me decisions I had made in previous lives and how those decisions were now going to impact my new life. And there was a whole lot of them, but one really stands out. It's pretty clear. In a previous life, I had been kind of a big, strong guy, and I had beaten up this other guy pretty bad. And at the time, I felt like I was justified, and this guy deserved it, and I was happy that I'd beat him up. But watching this scene with my guides, it was clear that I had gone too far. I had done too much. And my guides showed me that it was like karma that needed to be resolved. It was like I'd written a check and now I had to cash it, or there was one side of an equation and now we had to balance out the equation. I'm not sure how best to describe it, but somehow it was needed for my education that I experienced what I had given out previously. And if I didn't, it would kind of like hold me back. It would prevent me from moving to higher, happier levels in the spiritual realms. And so I agreed with their plan, which was for me to basically get in a fight and have my nose broken as a teenager, and that would help me to become a better soul, to become less prone to violence, I guess. And they showed me a number of other things I had done in previous lives and how that would now be planned into my upcoming life. And it was all for my benefit, and it would help me grow spiritually. And then they showed me some arrangements that were made between myself and others. They showed me how my shortcomings and my problems could be also used to help some other person with their spiritual growth, and vice versa, that some other person's spiritual shortcomings and their issues in life would be used to help me with my spiritual growth. And it was all planned out together so that all these different lives were intertwined such that it would help everybody. It was like we're all part of a similar plan. We're all a piece of this big plan, and what we do impacts everyone else. But this is all planned out such that it's the most benefit for everybody. And I needed to agree to some different things, and some other souls needed to agree. And we worked out different plans for how I would help them and they would help me. There was a lot of planning that went into this, and not only into what my life would be, but like if I had an option, like a fork in my life, it was oftentimes planned out both ways, so that either way, either decision I made, like there was a plan that would cover that. Anyway, when my life was all planned out, we looked at my life in its entirety again. I had a good look at what my parents were like, what their spiritual journey was like, where they were spiritually, what kind of parents they would be, what kind of brother I would have. It's safe to say that I knew what I was getting into. They asked me, "Are you sure you're willing to live this life?" And I agreed. I said, "Yes, I'm willing to live this life." And it's like with that, the decision was made, and I was off to become Aaron Green. So that kind of like answered my question, and I was back to floating in the yard, in my neighbor's yard. And I had more questions. I wanted to know, okay, well, what happens to souls between life? Like what happens after all these people die? What happens to their soul? And so I was shown a number of situations, and these were all situations that I had been in after my previous lives. I relived some of the scenarios I had been in, some of the realms I had gone to after I had previously died during these previous lives. I saw one realm that was absolutely horrible. I had been a kind of like a monster. The life before that, I had been, I guess, kind of a hateful, angry person who hurt others. And here in this afterlife setting, I was still like that. I had that same kind of mind frame where I wanted to kill and hurt other people. And I was around other souls just like me, and all we did was fight and try to kill each other. And no matter how bad we would wound each other, we would quickly heal and just go back to fighting each other. Well, eventually I got tired of that, and I made the decision that I wasn't going to fight with these other souls anymore. And when that happened, an angel or a being of light came down and lifted me up out of this group. And I was told that they had a way for me to continue my education, to keep growing and become a better soul. And as I understand it, they then transitioned me into a new life. And I was told that all of those souls I had been with, every soul I'd been fighting with, they were all going to leave that area someday. And I saw another time between lives where I had just been kind of lost and confused in darkness. And there was someone I had helped in the previous life, and they came down with some, they were like at a higher level, and they would come down and try to help the souls there. And this soul that I had helped in life, it came down and felt like it wanted to help me now. And so anyway, it helped me leave that group and start a new life. I saw another between life period where I had been in a place that looked kind of like Earth. It had streets and roads and buildings, and the souls there were very happy. And I saw that was somewhere I had been between some previous lives. And then I saw this other place. It was kind of like a city of light. The buildings were translucent, and they were like made of light, and the beings there, all the people, they were made of light. It was just absolutely beautiful, and they were extremely happy. Everyone there was really, really happy. Anyway, as I was having these thoughts, that ended, and I was back to floating there next to my body, and I had the thought that, wow, after this life, I get to go back to the happy realms. Like, I'll be able to go back there and be with my friends. And I was extremely happy about that. I really wanted to be back in that happy place with the friends that I had on the spiritual level. And when I had that thought, a being of light, an angel or something. I'm not sure what it was. It came at me very, very quickly. And this being was absolutely beautiful. I can't describe how beautiful he was. It was like a person made of light, but he was translucent, so you could see through him. So just like we have facial features that kind of tell a little bit about us, it's like you could see into inside of him, and you could see beautiful features on the inside that kind of told a story about what kind of soul this was or what kind of being it was. But somehow it was just all absolutely beautiful. But this angel or being of light told me that I was not to leave my body. It was like I had done something I wasn't supposed to do. I guess my breathing problem shouldn't have been bad enough that I left my body like I did. And bam, like that, I was back in my body. And I stood up, and I didn't have any breathing problem anymore. And I looked at my friends who I had been playing with, and I went back home, and I tried to explain it to my mother. And I, as a 6-year-old, I couldn't explain it. It was just way too much for me to try to explain all this to her. But I would think about it every day for months and months. And after maybe 6 months, I got contacted, mind-to-mind communication, by one of my guides. I knew exactly who it was. And they essentially told me that they needed to hide this experience from me, that it was interfering with my life, and I needed to agree with that. And I agreed, and they hid this experience from me, but told me I would get it back when I was older. And I went through life. I had my nose broken as a teenager. I had some other stuff happen to me that I had agreed to. And then when I was in my mid-30s, I was reading a Newsweek magazine article about Eben Alexander. He's a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. And somehow there's something about reading about that where it clicked, and I remembered what had happened to me as a kid. And I got all these memories back, and I have spent years thinking about it almost every day and replaying what I had been through during this experience. And I'm just trying to share it with anyone I can, anyone who will listen, just explain a little bit about what I have gone through. So a couple of things were very clear. God is loving, kind, compassionate, just absolutely wonderful. And it's like we're here to grow, to become better beings, more godlike, more loving, more kind, and that we need to freely accept those kinds of traits and become more godlike. And as we accept those traits of all the different manifestations of love, we will be able to further enjoy what God has prepared for us when we leave this place, and that we come through repeated trips, and eventually, when we've reached a high enough level, we don't have to come back to Earth anymore. We'll be able to move on to much better things. So if anyone wants to contact me, I'm easy to reach on Facebook, Aaron Thomas Green, or you can email me at aarongreen1975@gmail.com. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Anyway, thank you for listening, and God bless.
How is this story meaningful to you? If you're watching on YouTube, tell us in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a review and tell us there. If you or someone you know have a similar kind of story, please also leave that in the comments or send us a message at our website. Maybe we'll feature you. Visit NDE.com. Be blessed and a blessing, my friends.